The first axe bites deep into the pine trunk. The crack echoes across the slopes of Mount Pelion in 700 BC. 50 craftsmen crowd the cleared ground at the mountain's foot, hands calloused from decades of cutting and shaping. Down at the edge of the pebbled cove, the timber slipway waits, dug into the earth and sloped straight toward the sea. The first step is never cutting the trunk, it is measuring. The lead surveyor pulls a hemp rope taut along the tree's length. The rope is marked with charcoal notches, cut to the exact length the trireme needs. He runs a thumb along the notches, counts under his breath, and adjusts the rope's end to fit the trunk's taper. He steps back, squints into the sun, and checks the mark again. A murmur ripples through the waiting crew. He nods. It is 120 feet long. Perfect. No extra cut needed. Over 3 days, the crew takes turns swinging axes. They hew the trunk straight, shave off the bark and branches, and shape the rough wood into a single, solid keel. They roll it down the slope on logs, guiding it carefully to avoid splitting the grain. They lower it into the dugout slipway, align it with the slope's center line, and drive oak root stakes into the ground on either side. They tap each stake home until the keel does not shift, does not move. It sits tight, waiting for the next step. Next comes the framing. Curved ribs cut from naturally bent oak are shaped one by one. Each is test-fitted to notches cut into the keel's top, shaved down until the joint fits perfectly. A carpenter drives a bronze peg through the intersection, taps it home until it sits flush with the wood. When all 32 ribs lock into place, the trireme's narrow outline rises from the slipway. Planking follows. Craftsmen cut thin fir planks from the mountain slopes, fit them edge to edge along the ribs. They do not use nails. Instead, they drill small holes at every overlapping joint, thread twisted animal sinew through to tie the planks tight. They spread a thin layer of pine resin between each seam to seal out salt water. By the end of the 6th week, the hull is complete. Workers drag heavy limestone blocks onto the deck, lower them into the hold to act as ballast, balancing the narrow hull against rolling waves. They stretch a long hemp rope from bow to stern, tight across the rib tops, to keep the hull from warping in open water. Finally, they lower the pine mast into its socket, tie it secure with 4 supporting ropes, and hoist a woven linen sail. Hundreds of villagers gather on launch day. They grease the timber slipway with tallow. Teams of oxen lean into their yokes, pull the trireme loose. It sticks for a heartbeat, then lurches forward. It slides down the slope, hits the water with a great roaring splash, and floats steady. A cheer erupts across the cove. 300 miles west, in the port of Ostia, 100 AD, Roman shipbuilders gather to work on a grain carrier 4 times the size of the Greek trireme just launched. The timeline cuts back to Greece, 3 weeks after the launch. The trireme's crew rows it out of the cove for its first open water test. 170 oarsmen sit in 3 staggered rows along the hull. Their oars tip into the water in perfect, synchronized rhythm. A drummer beats a slow, steady cadence from the center deck. The trireme cuts through the water at 8 knots, leaving a sharp white wake that stretches half a mile behind it. It handles true. It does not heel too far, does not drag in the swell. The test is a success. Within 2 weeks, the trireme rounds the Cape and joins a fleet of 20 other triremes assembled off the coast of Attica. The anchor drops just after dawn. A runner paddles out from the lead ship, bobbing through the small chop. He pulls alongside, climbs onto the deck, and delivers his message. The enemy fleet is already moving north. They will sail today, not tomorrow. The crew snaps into action. They carry spears from the supply boat and stack them neatly along the upper bulwarks, within easy reach of soldiers. They prop round shields against the frame, secure them with rope to keep them from sliding overboard in rough water. The drum beat doubles, each strike sharp enough to cut through the wind. The oarsmen pull in unison, every muscle straining against the oar handles. Their chests heave, sweat dripping off their chins onto the planked deck below. The trireme surges forward, cutting through the swells without slowing. The enemy commander sees the charge. He shouts to his helmsman, orders a hard turn to port to bring his own ram around. The turn is too slow. The Greek trireme is already closing, its bronze-tipped ram pointing straight at the midsection of the nearest enemy hull. The Greek commander barks one final order. The oarsmen pull one last, deep, coordinated stroke. The ram punches through the enemy planking. There is a crunch of splintered fur, a crack of split ribs that echoes across the water. The ram locks deep in the enemy hold. Cold salt water pours through the gap, flooding the lower decks in seconds. The enemy ship lists hard to the side, its stern already dipping below the surface. Greek soldiers grab their spears from the bulwarks, leap across the 3-foot gap between the hulls onto the listing enemy deck. They cut down any enemy sailor who stands to fight. They take the survivors prisoner and scramble back to their own trireme before the enemy ship goes down. Damaged triremes limp back to the shipyard cove, their sides scraped and splintered from ramming runs. Shipwrights walk the length of every hull, tapping each joint with iron hammers, checking every peg and every sinew-sewn seam for split wood or loose connections. They pull the supporting ropes tight to check for hull warping, peer into the hold to check for leaks that slip past the resin seals. One trireme took a glancing ram to its own port side, its outer planking split nearly to the ribs. But the keel holds. Every peg stays driven home. No rib pulls free from its notch in the keel. No seam gapes open enough to sink the ship. The work of the shipbuilders holds every hand-laid timber exactly where it was placed. This victory was not won only by spears and oarsmen, not by shouted commands or lucky ramming strikes. It was built one axe stroke, one peg tapped home, one seam sealed with resin, one rib test-fitted and shaped by hand. The ancient shipbuilders of Mount Pelion built more than wood and rope. They built victory, one craft stroke at a time.